The sun was barely rising over the peaceful suburb of Willowbrook, but inside the Miller household, the day was already moving at full speed. Leo sat at the kitchen table with his tablet, tapping rapidly on the screen. He was playing a strategy game, constantly upgrading his virtual city, impatiently tapping whenever a timer took more than 10 seconds. Across the counter, his father, Arthur, was frantically typing on his laptop while taking loud sips from a mug of black coffee. Blueprints and financial sheets covered the table around him.
Leo, turn down the volume, please. I have a meeting with Mr. Gable in 2 hours and lined.
Dad, it's just game sound effects. Why don't you just use an automated draw the blueprints?
Leo groaned, not taking his eyes off the screen. Arthur paused, rubbing his exhausted eyes. Because, Leo, building a structure requires precision, patience, and an understanding of materials that a simple program can't fully grasp. Shortcuts lead to modern structures that crack within a decade. Just then, slow, steady footsteps echoed down the hallway. Grandpa Julian walked into the kitchen holding a warm, wooden mug filled with tea. His hands were weathered, lined with deep veins and light scars from decades of working with wood. Grandpa Julian said gently,
Good morning, Leo. Good morning, Arthur.
Morning, Dad.
Grandpa, look! I built an entire digital kingdom in 3 days. What do you think?
Julian looked down at the bright, glowing screen, his eyes soft with kindness.
It looks very shiny, Leo. But tell me, if you turn off the battery,
Where does your kingdom go?
Well, nowhere, I guess. It disappears until I turn it back on.
Leo blinked and said. Julian gave a light chuckle and sat down in an old wooden chair near the dining table. The chair creaked softly, a warm, solid sound. Julian said,
that is the difference between things made quickly with modern magic and things built slowly with human care. One vanishes when the light goes out. The other stays behind to hold you up when you are tired.
Arthur sighed, snapping his laptop shut and said,
Dad, please don't start with the old-fashioned philosophy today. I'm under immense pressure. Mr. Gable is coming over this afternoon to review the final designs. If he doesn't like them, my firm loses the contract.
Patience, Arthur. A house built in fear rarely stands strong against the storm.
By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the doorbell rang sharp and loud. Arthur rushed to open the front door, adjusting his tie. Standing on the porch was Mr. Gable, a tall man in a tailored suit, clutching a leather briefcase. He walked straight into the house without waiting for an invitation, checking his high-end watch. Mr. Gable said briskly, his voice echoing in the hallway.
I hope you have the revised plans ready. Time is money, and every minute I spend waiting is $10,000 wasted.
Arthur said,
Welcome, Mr. Gable. Yes, everything is laid out in the study. Please, step right this way.
Leo watched from the stairs, curious about the intimidating man. Grandpa Julian was sitting in the living room quietly polishing a small piece of dark cherry wood with a soft cloth. As Mr. Gable walked toward the study, his eyes caught the antique wooden armchair sitting in the corner of the room. It was rich mahogany, adorned with intricate hand-carved floral patterns along the armrests. Mr. Gable, stopping in his tracks. His tone was dismissive. Asked suddenly,
Where did you get this chair? And doesn't match the modern aesthetic of your house. It takes up too much space.
Oh, that's my father's work. He carved it over 40 years ago.
Nostalgia is fine for a museum, Arthur. In the real world, we need efficiency. Old things simply slow us down.
Grandpa Julian didn't look up from his polishing, but his lips curved into a subtle, tranquil smile.
A flower grows quickly, Mr. Gable, but an oak tree takes a century. Yet when the hurricane comes, which one do you seek shelter under?
I seek shelter under a modern concrete bunker, old man. Arthur, let's see the plans.
In the study, Arthur unfolded the vast architectural sheets across a large table. Leo sneaked into the room, sitting quietly in a corner to watch his father work. Arthur explained, pointing to detailed structural diagrams.
Here is the design for the central glass plate. It maximizes light while using high-tension steel frames.
Mr. Gable leaned over, frowning heavily as he inspected the details.
No, no, no! This is far too conservative. I told you I want without central support pillars. I want the overhang extended by another 15 meters without central support pillars. I want it to look like it's floating.
Arthur paled. Mr. Gable, extending the overhang that far without central columns will compromise the structural integrity. The weight of heavy winter snow or strong winds could cause severe fatigue on the steel frame. Mr. Gable shouted, slamming his hand on the table.
If you can't deliver my vision by tomorrow morning, I am tearing up this contract and giving the project to someone else.
Arthur trembled slightly. His family's livelihood depended heavily on this contract.
I will see if I can recalculate the stress loads, Mr. Gable. Give me until tomorrow morning.
You must heed my warning, Arthur.
9 in the morning, Arthur, not a minute later, Mr. Gable warned, picking up his briefcase and marching out of the house, slamming the front door behind him. Arthur collapsed into his office chair, holding his head in his hands.
Dad, are you okay?
I don't know, Leo. If I push the numbers to make him happy, the building might be unsafe. But if I say no, we lose everything I've worked for this year.
That evening, atmosphere in the house was tense and heavy. Arthur was locked in his study, desperately typing on his computer, trying to force the calculations to work. Leo walked out to the backyard shed, where a yellow light beamed softly through the dusty windows. Inside, the rich scent of sawdust, cedar, and linseed oil filled the cold night air. Grandpa Julian was standing at a heavy wooden workbench holding a simple hand plane, carefully shaving off thin, paper-like curls of timber from a long board of white oak. Shk, shk, shk. The steady rhythm was surprisingly comforting. Leo called out, stepping inside.
Grandpa?
Julian smiled, pausing his work.
Ah, Leo, come in, my boy. What brings you to my humble friss of dust?
I'm worried about Dad. He's trying so hard to make Mr. Gable happy, but he looks like he's gonna break. Why can't Dad just give Mr. Gable what he wants, so everyone can be happy quickly?
Julian laid his hand plane down and picked up 2 pieces of wood. One was a soft pine block, the other was a solid piece of hard maple. Julian said,
Leo, take this nail and try to push it into this soft piece of wood.
Leo took the iron nail and pressed it firmly into the soft pine. It pressed down easily, leaving a deep indentation. Julian said, hand supplying the piece of hard maple, Leo pushed with all his strength, his fingers turning red, but the dense maple didn't yield at all. The nail slipped and scratched the surface without making an impact. Julian said,
It pleases the nail for a moment because it offers no resistance. But what happens when you build a house out of soft pine and place heavy weight on top?
Gently. It collapses, Leo said quietly. Precisely. Julian nodded. Your father is being asked to turn his principles into soft pine. Mr. Gable lives in a world of quick result, speed, and instant gratification. He thinks speed equals success, but nature does not work that way, and neither does truth. Julian walked over to a corner of the workshop and uncovered an old, dust-covered wooden box carved with intricate leaves and vines. He opened it, revealing a set of glowing brass and steel woodworking tools passed down through 4 generations.
Do you know why my father gave me these tools, Leo?
Because you were a carpenter?
Julian looking straight into Leo's eyes and replied, "No."
Because he wanted me to understand that the most valuable things in life, character, trust, love, and integrity, cannot be rushed. They must be carved, sanded, and tested over time.
The next morning arrived with cold grey clouds hanging overhead. Arthur walked into the dining room, his eyes bloodshot, carrying a revised set of blueprints in his briefcase. He looked pale and exhausted. Julian asked softly over breakfast.
Arthur, did you finish?
Arthur said, his voice flat.
Dad, I modified the calculations. I found a theoretical way to extend the over-visible support columns. It satisfies Mr. Gable's aesthetic demands.
It satisfies his demands, but does it satisfy your conscience as a builder?
Arthur froze. He looked down at his hands, which were shaking slightly, and said,
Dad, I have bills to pay. I have Leo's future to think about.
Leo looked up at his father, then said,
Dad, yesterday Grandpa showed me 2 pieces of wood, pine and maple. He said soft wood gives way easily, but hardwood stays strong even when it's tough.
Arthur looked at his son, surprised by the words. Before Arthur could reply, a horn honked outside. Mr. Gable had arrived early, stepping out of his luxury car with an air of absolute authority. They all gathered in the living room. Mr. Gable stood imperiously by the fireplace while Arthur unrolled the new blueprints on the large coffee table.
Well, Arthur, tell me you brought me what I asked for.
Arthur swallowed hard. He looked at the blueprint, then at Leo, and finally at Grandpa Julian, who gave him a calm, reassuring nod.
I said no. I reran the simulations all night. While this modified design might technically pass a quick inspection today, under extreme weather conditions over 5 years, the stress will cause microscopic fractures in the primary lobe. I will not sign my name to a structure that places human lives at risk.
Mr. Gable blinked, stunned.
Are you insane? Do you have any idea who I am? I can destroy your firm's reputation with one phone call. I am offering you millions.
Arthur replied, meeting Mr. Gable's furious glare.
And I am offering you a building that will stand for 100 years without killing anyone. If you want a dangerous floating roof, hire someone else. But my name will not be on it. Then we are done! You just made the biggest mistake of your career, Arthur!
Mr. Gable turned around abruptly to storm out of the house, but in his blind fury and hasty movement, he tripped over the edge of the living room rug, losing his balance completely. Mr. Gable gasped, flailing his arms as his heavy frame fell backward toward the hard tile floor near the fireplace. Instinctively, Mr. Gable reached out to grab onto whatever was closest to break his fall. His full weight slammed onto Grandpa Julian's old hand-carved mahogany armchair. Thud! The room went dead silent. Mr. Gable was gasping for air, sitting heavily right on the wooden seat of the ancient chair, his briefcase lying open on the floor with papers scattered everywhere. The old wooden chair didn't crack. It didn't bend. It didn't creak dangerously. It held Mr. Gable's considerable weight without moving a single millimeter, firm as a mountain. Grandpa Julian walked over slowly, holding out a calm, steady hand to help the shaken businessman stand up. Julian asked gently, without a trace of anger or smugness in his voice. Mr. Gable took Julian's hand and pulled himself up. He looked back at the old chair, touching the smooth hand-carved armrest where his full weight had just slammed. Mr. Gable's voice, suddenly losing its harsh, arrogant edge, stammered and stammered.
That lightweight chair would have snapped.
Any modern snapped under that impact. I would have broken my spine against the fireplace hearth.
Julian said softly.
That chair was built 45 years ago, Mr. Gable. It was carved from seasoned heartwood oak. I spent 3 months shaping the joints by hand, without a single nail or cheap glue. I built it so that, long after I am gone, it would still catch.
Mr. Gable stood silent for a long moment. He looked at the ancient chair, then turned his gaze toward Arthur's original, uncompromising blueprints on the table, the ones designed with heavy, visible support pillars. He looked at Leo, who was standing beside his father, and then back at Arthur.
You really believe your original design is the only safe way? I know it is. Because I was taught to build things to last, not just to look good for a photo shoot.
Mr. Gable let out a long, slow sigh. He knelt down, picked up his scattered papers, and placed them back inside his briefcase. He walked over to Arthur and extended his hand and said softly to Arthur,
And extend the deadline by 2 months. I want the complex built right, not fast.
Thank you, Mr. Gable. You won't regret it.
That evening the family sat together in the backyard shed. The smell of cedar wood was warm and comforting. The crisis had passed, and a sense of profound peace filled the air. Leo sat on the wooden bench putting down his tablet screen, which had now gone completely dark, and unheeded. He picked up a small piece of excess white oak and a piece of sandpaper, slowly rubbing the wood back and forth, feeling the rough grain gradually transform into something silky and smooth. Leo spoke up.
Grandpa?
Yes, Leo?
I think I understand now. Speed lets you see things quickly, but patience lets you build things that matter.
Your grandfather taught me that years ago, Leo. Today, I almost forgot it because I was afraid. But doing the right thing, even when it takes longer or costs more, is the only way to build a life you can be proud of.
Grandpa Julian looked at his son and grandson, his eyes shining with pride and quiet happiness. Julian said,
Remember this, Leo. A fast world will always pressure you to cut corners. In your work, in your friendships, and in your truth. But shortcuts only create fragile foundations. Build your character like seasoned oak, slow, honest, and unyielding against the storm.
His deep, gentle voice carrying through the workshop, Leo smiled, feeling the warmth of the workshop and the strength of his family.